What you're about to hear is a real case. It's been called a miracle, but others say it's just biology, and maybe even psychology. It's the kind of story that splits people. Some believe without hesitation, others aren't so sure. A sacred object, a red stain, a lab report, and an entire country asking, could this really be a sign from God? I'm going to take you through every detail of the story. What happened, what was found, what was said, and in the end, you decide. It was Christmas morning, December 25th, 2013, in Legnica, a small city in southwestern Poland, not far from the Czech border. The air outside was cold, frost lined the rooftops, but inside the church of St. Hyacinth, candles flickered. The pews were full. It was one of the holiest days of the year for Catholics, and in Poland, that's saying something. Poland is one of the most deeply Catholic countries in Europe. Over 90% of the population identifies as Catholic. Churches aren't just for Sundays, they're woven into the rhythm of everyday life. Baptisms, funerals, weddings, holidays, everything passes through the church. And Legnica, while not as famous as Warsaw or Krakow, shares in that religious culture. It's a quiet, historic city of about 100,000 people, known for its medieval architecture, cobblestone streets, and once being the site of a major battle against the Mongols in 1241. It also played a significant role in the Cold War era, housing a massive Soviet military base during communist rule. By 2013, Poland had been free from Soviet control for over 2 decades. The church had played a major role in that freedom. Pope John Paul II, himself a Pole, was still deeply revered. So in towns like Legnica, attending Christmas Mass wasn't just a tradition, it was a statement of identity. St. Hyacinth Church, named after a 13th century Dominican saint known for miracles, was built in a modest style, brick and simple ornamentation. Not a tourist site, but a place where people had been coming for years, even generations, to find peace and pray. That Christmas day, Father Andrzej Ziombor stood at the altar. He was leading the Mass as he had done many times before. Everything seemed normal until communion. During the distribution of the Eucharist, one of the consecrated hosts fell to the floor. Church law is very clear about what to do in this case. The host must not be consumed. Instead, it's placed in water to dissolve naturally, a way of respectfully allowing its physical form to disappear. Father Ziombor followed protocol. The host was placed in a vessel filled with water and then stored in the tabernacle, a sacred space like a vault where the consecrated hosts are kept. And that should have been the end of the story, but it wasn't. The host hadn't dissolved like it was supposed to. Instead, a reddish stain had appeared, spreading along the edge like dried blood. Father Ziombor was the first to see it. He alerted his bishop, Bishop Stefan Cici. They photographed it, they took notes, and they waited. Some began whispering, was this a miracle? Others in the parish weren't convinced. Could it be mold? A chemical reaction? Had someone tampered with it? The church ordered tests. Samples from the stained host were sent to 2 of Poland's top research centers, the University of Wrocław and the Pomeranian Medical Institute in Szczecin. What scientists found shocked almost everyone. The reddish substance, they said, was human cardiac tissue, part of the heart under stress, as if it had suffered severe trauma. There were signs of striation and inflammation. The tissue showed signs of having come from a person still alive or who had died recently. It contained human DNA. That's when things really took off. News of the Legnica host began to spread. At first, it was just a quiet notice from the parish. Then local journalists picked up on the story. And before long, Catholic media across the globe were reporting what had happened on Christmas Day inside St. Hyacinth's Church. Father Andrzej Ziombra, the priest who had discovered the red stain, went public. In interviews, he didn't just describe what he saw. He talked about what happened afterward. He said the miracle had already changed lives. One man, he recalled, had refused the church his entire life. After hearing about the host, the man went to confession for the first time in 50 years. Stories like this multiplied. Word reached the bishop, the new head of the diocese. He reviewed the scientific findings and photos, and on April 2016, he issued a formal announcement. The church was allowing the host to be venerated publicly. That meant people could come and pray in front of it, not as a confirmed miracle, but as something worthy of deep reverence. They placed the host in a monstrance, a glass and gold vessel used to display sacred objects, and set it in a side chapel of the church. And the people came. Pilgrims began arriving from across Poland, then from Germany, then from the United States. Some came out of faith, Some came out of curiosity. The story traveled fast through Catholic newspapers, blogs, and even secular media. Legnica became a minor pilgrimage destination. In response, the church began perpetual adoration, meaning someone is always present 24 hours a day, praying in front of the host. It was no longer just a story, it was becoming a movement. And it wasn't the only one. Catholics quickly connected this to other recent claims of Eucharistic miracles. Sokolka in 2008, Tixla in 2006, Buenos Aires in 1996. Each involved hosts that appeared to transform into human tissue. In every case, the blood type was AB. Catholic organizations began adding Legnica to travel exhibits about Eucharistic miracles. And in churches around the world, priests mentioned it in homilies, describing it as a sign that God was reminding the faithful of the real presence in the Eucharist. But not everyone agreed. Some scientists, and even some within the church, urged caution. Scientists who weren't connected to the church raised tough questions. Dr. Gregory Minot, a medical pathologist in Krakow, told one reporter, "When you take a piece of bread and leave it in water for a week, things grow, bacteria, fungi, mold. That can look reddish." Others pointed out that if DNA was found, why wasn't a full genetic profile released? Whose DNA was it? Could it have come from a contamination? And what about the lab controls? Was the testing environment sterile? Were the samples handled correctly? Even some Catholic scientists cautioned that miracles need to be judged carefully. Faith and science are not enemies, said Father Tadeusz Pacholis, a priest and neuroscientist. But not every strange thing that happens in the church is divine. Interestingly, this wasn't the first time something like this had been reported. In 2008, in the Polish town of Sokolka, a host also developed a red stain that was later said to be a cardiac muscle. In Buenos Aires, Argentina, in the 1990s, another claimed miracle showed similar results. And the local bishop who approved the initial investigation was Jorge Bergoglio, now known as Pope Francis. In all of these cases, the blood type was the same, AB, the rarest of the major blood types, and the same found on the Shroud of Turin. Is this a pattern, a sign, or just a coincidence wrapped in belief? Today, the host remains on display in Legnica. Some visitors kneel in silence, others come out of curiosity. Father Zjombor, the priest who first noticed the stain, still stands by the miracle. "This is not from this world," he once told the local paper. But other clergy are more reserved. The Vatican has acknowledged the event, but has not declared it an official miracle with global recognition. The host has not been canonically declared a relic. Among believers, opinions vary. Some feel strengthened in their faith, some don't talk about it at all. So what to do with this story? A host falls on the ground, a red stain appears. Tests are done. The church made its decision, and still some believe and some don't. Could this be a sign from heaven, a mystery too deep to explain, or a natural phenomenon shaped by expectations? This case remains open. The host is still there, the tissue still visible. But the final answer? That's up to you. Let me know in the comments, miracle or misunderstanding. And if you want to explore more stories like this, where strange and sacred meet, be sure to subscribe.